Atlantis story held a fascination for a lot of people throughout history from the date it was told by Plato. People looked for Atlantis everywhere in the world, from the Greek islands, to the Black Sea, to the Atlantic Ocean, to Bolivia, to the Indian Ocean, to Japan. They looked everywhere except in the land of the source of the legend. No satisfying interpretation for the narration elements has been given, in terms of the purpose of the narration, dates, names, landmarks, location, people involved, who they were, from where they came, and where they have gone. Well, there is one authentic lead, and that is the date the Egyptian priest told Solon the Egyptian have documented the end of the events, meaning the destruction of Atlantis, which was about 9400 BC. The date here is the most plausible element in the whole story, because it coincides with the end of the last ice age and the rising of sea level that could have submerged Atlantis. Let us start with the narration. It was narrated by Plato according to Solon, through a dialogue between Socrates and Critias, who got it from his great-grandfather's friend Dropides. Briefly, the story passed through 7 or 8 persons in a period of 40 to 50 years. Not to mention how it was translated and copied several times during the following centuries. Moreover, and that's the important part, Solon learned about Atlantis from an ancient Egyptian priest when he was visiting Egypt. And draw 100 lines under, Ancient Egyptian Priest. The Egyptian priest started his lecture to Solon by reminding him of several deluges that happened in that old age. He says, "A mighty power which unprovoked made an expedition against the whole of Europe and Asia, and to which your city put an end. This power came forth out of the Atlantic Ocean. For in those days the Atlantic was navigable. And there was an island situated in front of the straits which are by you called the Pillars of Heracles. The island was larger than Libya and Asia put together, and was the way to other islands. And from these you might pass to the whole of the opposite continent which surrounded the true ocean. For this sea which is within the Straits of Heracles is only a harbor, having a narrow entrance, but that other is a real sea. And the surrounding land may be most truly called a boundless continent. Now in this island of Atlantis there was a great and wonderful empire which had rule over the whole island and several others, and over parts of the continent, and, furthermore, the men of Atlantis had subjected the parts of Libya within the columns of Heracles as far as Egypt, and of Europe as far as Tyrrhenia. This vast power, gathered into one, endeavored to subdue at a blow our country and yours and the whole of the region within the straits, and then, Solon, your country shone forth, in the excellence of her virtue and strength, among all mankind. She was preeminent in courage and military skill and was the leader of the Hellenes. And when the rest fell off from her, being compelled to stand alone, after having undergone the very extremity of danger, she defeated and triumphed over the invaders, and preserved from slavery those who were not yet subjugated, and generously liberated all the rest of us who dwelt within the pillars. But afterwards there occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune all your warlike men in a body sank into the earth, and the island of Atlantis in like manner disappeared in the depths of the sea. For which reason the sea in those parts is impassable and impenetrable, because there is a shoal of mud in the way, and this was caused by the subsidence of the island. To locate Atlantis we need to find answers for the following questions that could fit the description in Critias' narrative. What was the concept held by everyone who took place in relaying the narration, like the naming of the Pillars of Heracles? Was it the concept of Plato, or Critias, or Solon, or the Egyptian priest, or the Atlanteans, or someone else like Herodotus. What was the meaning of ocean and sea at that time? And what was the meaning of continent? How come a massive population, 2 million according to some accounts, was living in an island lying west of the known world at that time of history? About 9500 BC. And mobilized towards the east versus the known movement of population expanding from the Middle East towards west. How come the Atlanteans disappeared without leaving no trace of their civilization around the area suggested to be the Pillars of Heracles? Meaning the Straits of Gibraltar. Where is the body of water in front of these straits that was navigable and became partially impassable and impenetrable? Where can we find a place that qualify for the existence of a huge island that existed in front of or within straits for a long time and disappeared? In the depths of the sea? Where is the shoal of mud under which the island has subsided? How could the island be larger than two land areas that were called at that time Libya and Asia put together, and why these two areas particularly? Why not Libya and Europe, for instance, who's supposed to be closer to Atlantis than Asia? Where could be some islands situated next to Atlantis? And one can pass from Atlantis to these islands and from it to a continent that surrounds the true sea? Obviously. Pass here means a short crossing that could be by bridges or ferryboats. Where could be the sea which was within the Straits of Heracles as only a harbor, having a narrow entrance, but that other is a real sea? And the surrounding land may be most truly called a boundless continent. What is the authenticity of the statement? The men of Atlantis had subjected the parts of Libya within the columns of Heracles as far as Egypt, and of Europe as far as Tyrrhenia. While we search for answers to the narration elements, we should bear in mind what time in history every name and expression is conceived of or belongs to. Does it belong to the suggested time of the events, about 9400 BC? Or to Solon and Plato time, about 400 to 360 BC, or to later times from the 1st century to the 20th century? We can see how people's concept of the world map has changed since Homer time. Even during the 19th century they interpreted Herodotus' description of the world differently. They even conceived a closed Mediterranean Sea, like a lake during Homer time. They didn't see Africa, which they called Libya, and Asia more than a strip of land together in size less than Europe. The ancient Egyptians, as well, saw Libya as only the very narrow inhabited area adjacent to the west side of the Nile Delta. Like the way the Romans seen Africa as the inhabited area of what is now Tunisia and Libya. And they saw Asia as the narrow inhabited area to the east of the Nile Delta. It's worth to say that they are the people who named Libya, Lubo, and Asia, Arab.